Hey, what's going on, people? This is Bo Wills. I'd love for you to check out episode number 11 of my podcast, What's the Big Idea with me, Bo Wills. In this episode, I sit down for a follow-up conversation with Commissioner Danny Glidewell to discuss the purchase card issue that has recently embroiled the Board of County Commissioners in criticism over allegedly improper purchases made on county-issued credit cards. Commissioner Glidewell also discusses his statement at the July 12 Board of County Commissioners meeting, as well as the very public termination of former county administrator Dee Dee Highnote. So please check out episode number 11, What's the Big Idea with Commissioner Danny Glidewell. Commissioner Glidewell, thanks for joining me again to discuss maybe some of this P-card issue and anything else that might come up about that. I listened to the July 12th meeting, which I guess was sort of a response to the audit that had come out, maybe giving the county attorney and the commissioners a chance to sort of speak on the issue without some interruptions and get a message out.
Yeah, the board, we can't really talk among ourselves without being in a meeting, so that meeting was a chance for us to hear from county attorney and to hear from ourselves, each of us, to explain to each other and to the public what we had found so far on those issues.
How did this issue get brought to the surface initially?
That's a good question, because the clerk has yet to talk to us, or at least to me, about any of this. So, to the best of my understanding, back in, I guess, February, an anonymous person called in and said that Commissioner McCormick and myself had charged alcohol on a P card using a county vehicle.
Was this after or before Ms. Highnote was terminated?
This was before.
This was before Ms. Highnote became an issue.
And so that was what they were supposed to be investigating, and while that report is not clear about anything, it did reveal that that wasn't the case. There's no charge on my card in any way about alcohol, and certainly not on a county vehicle. And but instead of just saying, and by Commissioner McCormick said in his statement that the 12th that he had an instance in California where he had bought a couple of bottles of beer and paid for it with a P card, and he paid that back.
Is that permissible to do?
No.
Okay.
And so other than that, but the underlying charges on both of us were false. And instead of just saying that, they opened it up apparently to investigate everybody's P cards. But they didn't follow correct standards of governmental audits. And to start with, they didn't tell us that they were conducting an audit, which is not the way it's supposed to be done. They're supposed to tell the subject of the audit. They never came to us for any documentation whatsoever, and in fact, apparently this thing was completed in April. They never told us that the thing existed until the Thursday prior, a week ahead of time. They called, the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Thomason, and the county attorney, Mr. Atkinson, went to meet with the clerk because we've been asking for changes to the P card policy.
And what brought up your request to make changes to that policy? Was it the February anonymous tip?
No,
so
we didn't know about that.
So before that, you knew that there was an issue with practice and policy not lining up
we had looked at some of our employees and had found some things that we were uncomfortable with, and things that should have been changed, not because there's anything wrong per se, but the policy that is in place right now is rather old, and how things are done, how business is conducted has changed. One of the obvious answer or examples is the policy says that you're not supposed to do online transactions. Well,
welcome to 2022, right?
Everybody knows that in the course of regular business these days that most everything is done online. In fact, most of our business that's on that audit was conducted online. Mm-hmm. So we knew that there were some things needed to be updated. We got a lot of policies that were some of them date back to the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, and they need changing. They need bringing up, and that was one of them. But anyways, they went to discuss that and got told about this audit. They wasn't given a copy of it, they were told about it. And then apparently the clerk's office hand delivered to the county attorney's office a copy Thursday afternoon, close of business. And then it was released to the public Friday. So, and we were not given a copy. I still haven't been officially handed a copy. The copy I got was emailed to me by a citizen. That's not the way you do business.
Right.
And so, we were
caught off guard a little bit.
I caught off guard's a better way of putting it. So we started trying to look through this stuff, and we've probably got a stack of papers that high. We found in looking at it that the vast majority of our records from my office, my P card, are in their own system, in the clerk system. Why either A, they can't find stuff in their own system, which is bad.
So what you're saying is the backup that shows that no infractions occurred, the records are actually in place.
In there, they're there. I mean, my aide was out of the office for the first week, but since she's been back to work, she's been delving into their records. They're all there. I mean,
So let me ask another question. If we had the report in front of us and we were looking at all the transactions that are made to look like infractions, is any of that spending that the county should not have spent money on?
No.
Except the one for beer.
Well, yeah, I can't. I'm not going to speak to any other commissioner stuff. Right. And but other than I will say this, Commissioner Anderson was sort of implicated in gas pumping gas out of the county tank without it going into his county vehicle or his district county vehicle. And in actuality, that was another Tony Anderson that works for the county, or Anthony Anderson. And I mean, that on its face, that glaring of an error that would have taken 5 minutes to fix, that pretty much invalidates the whole mess. But we've been through that with a fine-tooth comb. The records are there, and most of it is about the county belongs to 3 different organizations. Small County Coalition, which is a group that has 40 members that are the smaller counties in the state. Mm-hmm. Then we belong to the Florida Association of Counties, which is all 67 counties. And we belong to the National Association of Counties, which is most of the counties around the country. Now, these organizations have meetings. Generally, the Small County Coalition and the Florida Association of Counties meetings are at the same time, at the same place, but that we have that. And then I know for mine, the Florida Association of Counties has what is called the Institute of County Government, which allows commissioners and employees now for the last 2 or 3 years to attend classes. There's a certified county commissioner, advanced county commissioner 1 and 2, and those classes are generally in Gainesville. Some of them are online now since COVID, and they haven't come offline, but when I was elected they were all in person. But those are the trips, or those are the places we have to go. I'm on the board of directors for the Small County Coalition. I represent District 2, which is Walton, Holmes, Washington, a part of Okaloosa. It's basically the Senate district. And I was just elected to the board of directors, and I had been on the board of directors in the past for the Florida Association of Counties. So, and at various times I've been on the Water Policy Committee, I've been on the Tax and Finance Committee, I've been on the Criminal Justice Committee. So all of these things require going to meetings. Travel. And they hold these things. They set the place, they get a book of rooms or a block of rooms, and you rent the rooms. So all of that is perfectly legitimate travel. And
those type of charges showed up in the report as infractions?
Yes, they did. And they would...
On what basis were they in?
Missing receipts, missing records. The records are in we found them. I don't know what to tell them. If they can't operate their own computer system, their own record system, I don't know what to tell them.
Well, without casting aspersions, on the clerk, why do you think it came out so spontaneously? Or
I have my suspicions, and at the meeting I sort of lost my temper and said them, but either they don't know how to get their own records, or they don't know what they're talking about. One of the two. I don't know what. But like I said, we've got a stack of because we've made copies of it now. That I don't know what to tell them. And so we asked for a meeting with the clerk, all 5 county commissioners, through the county attorney. Asked for me to talk about this, because a normal audit, you would have a chance to, they would have said, here's the problem, and a lot of those problems are in there 2 or 3 times. But here's what we found, and could you shed any light on that? And then we would go through the records, produce, show them where they're at, and that we turned them in. And then they would all be all right. They never asked. They never said it. We didn't even know what was going on. How do you do an audit that the target don't know what's going on, unless you're trying? I can't justify that with any other thing but something not very savory. But anyways, maybe there is an explanation. I don't know.
When Miss Hynut was let go, what did it have to do with her purchase card transactions?
Well, as part of looking at our operations, there were some things found in her transactions that shouldn't have been there, buying clothes and other things. That's serious. I don't know that it would have resulted in what happened. However, the way that the reason that we don't have all our employees answer to us directly,
us being the commissioners,
is because everything we do is in the sunshine. We have to do it in a public meeting with the public sitting there. And that's generally not the way that you do employees. So, I mean, if it was, say, a truck driver in one of the district road crews that had done something that they shouldn't have done, it would never come to the board. It would never be in public. The HR director and the county administrator would take care of that. And so for those reasons, there's a very limited number of people who answer to the board, who the board hires and fires. And that's the county administrator, county attorney, and the finance director. That's who answers to us. Mm-hmm. The assistant county attorneys they answer to the county attorney.
And you can't counsel the county administrator in private and say, this is what we found, this is what's going to happen if things don't change, or whatever the case may be.
Well, one of us, if one of us had a concern, yeah, but this was done, I mean, this was brought out, and we to talk about it had to be done in public. And
so you and another commissioner can't sit in a room and say, this is what we found and this is what we're going to do about it.
No, can't do it. It's against the law. So, Mr. Corman he was taking over as county administrator on an interim basis April 1st. But anyway, and this was all in March. But anyways, there was some questions asked about, because the chairman has to sign time cards for the people who answer to the board, the county administrator, the county attorney, CFO. And so in doing that, the chairman, Commissioner Barker, had some questions about time cards and about vehicle usage. Because if you use a vehicle, you have to check on your time. If you're a county employee and you use a vehicle, you have to check on the time sheet that you're using a county vehicle.
Right.
And for whatever reason, apparently Ms. Hino hadn't done that. There were some questions asked by the chair about that. She stated in an open meeting she didn't know the policy, that she didn't have any idea that she had to check that box. Well, somebody anonymously sent the county attorney a letter that she had written herself 2 weeks previous, where she explained, because Ms. Thomason had just fallen under the board. We had just moved that position under the board directly there was reasons for that, but I won't get into them. We're responsible for the money. We wanted the person in charge of the money to be under the board and not be influenced by anybody else. But that's the reason. But anyways, in doing that, when she came under the board, she became eligible to have a take-home vehicle. And so Ms. Hinote sent her a detailed letter 2 weeks before that meeting, outlining that board policy, including that you have to check your timesheet if you use the county vehicle to take it home. Mm-hmm. And you can't have the county administrator doing that in a county meeting. You just can't do that.
Okay.
And so that's the reason that she was let go. And I hate it was in public. I hate it was done. She's worked for the county a long time, and I've known her a long time, and I have a high amount of regard for her. I didn't like it, but sometimes when you're in positions of responsibility, you have to do things that you don't like to do.
Right.
And that was probably the single worst feeling I've ever had in this 4 years of being in this job. Was that. And but anyways, I don't know that the only way that a P card was associated was we probably wouldn't have found out the one thing, or the one thing wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been asking about the other thing.
Right.
So
what authority does the county commissioner have to manage day-to-day operations around the county outside of a meeting? I mean, does the county commissioner really hold a lot of authority beyond sitting in a BCC meeting?
No. No. Well, and at one time, county commissioners, in fact, the official title was road commissioner, and each of the 5 districts that were like mini road departments, the county commissioner did the hiring, the firing, and the road department assigned work. All the employees worked for the county commissioner at will. It was like 5 little fiefdoms. And
how long ago has that been? That sort of set up?
96, 97. The county changed that.
The county changed it on its own? It wasn't forced by the state to do anything?
No, there's still county. Well, I think Holmes County's still like that. But, I mean, we could go back to that. I don't think that'd be very advisable.
Okay.
But anyways, in the late 90s, they organized a centralized public works and brought all the road departments under a centralized one budget, one director, and the commissioners were removed from the day-to-day operations. And so practically, there's only 3 people in the county that the commissioners can hire and fire, and that's county administrator, county attorney, chief financial officer. At one time, the TDC director was in that shape, but we changed that about 2 years ago. But
if you had a particular issue with the county administrator, I mean, can you call them into your office and say, hey, this is something that needs to be addressed?
I can do that, but I can't fire him. I can't hire a new one. The board has to do that as a board in public, and you have to have 3 votes.
The Sunshine Law, that's a state law?
That's a state law.
And it just applies across governments in the state of Florida?
Well, it doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to the legislature.
Imagine that.
But it does apply to any local government, city, county, special district, anything. So the fire districts, there's 3 of them in the county that are independent districts. Those are under the Sunshine.
Do you think the Sunshine Law is a good law in general? I mean, not to be facetious, but does it serve a good purpose?
Yes, there's parts of it that make governing a little bit more difficult. I mean, because it makes it gives the county administrator and the county attorney, and it gives the people who answer right to the board more power, because they can talk to all 5 members and it doesn't count. So they actually can know what we're going to do before we do it, because they have the ability to communicate with all 5 commissioners, and that's why those jobs are very important, and the level of trust that those jobs require is extreme, because the only time that I can talk to another commissioner about county business is at a board meeting. That's the only time. Now, if we go out to dinner together, that's not a violation of the Sunshine Law. We can talk about anything under the sun except county business. We cannot talk about county business, but we can talk about football, basketball, baseball,
news, weather, and sports. News,
weather, and sports, except county news. Can't talk about county news. But that makes prior to the Sunshine Law, the commissioners could sit down at a coffee shop and talk about county business and work it all out. I guess their meetings were probably a lot shorter. So
why do you think the Sunshine Law popped up?
I've been told, because this was done I was probably in middle school or high school when this was done. when the initial, well, there's two different laws. There's Chapter 119, the Public Records Law, which means anything to do with county business is public record, with some exceptions. And then there's the Sunshine Law, which is the public meeting law, which you can't have a meeting about between two elected officials to a congenial board, which is basically a commissioner to commissioner. Now I can talk to the Funiac City Councilman, I can talk to the sheriff, I can talk to South Walton Fire District Commissioner, any of those, but I can't talk to the other four commissioners. Supposedly, that law was initially aimed at the legislature to try to break the power of the old Southern Democrats. And at the last minute, they took the legislature out and put local governments in. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's been in effect a long time.
What's the game plan for correcting policy to procedure gaps?
Well, we've tasked the county administrator, county attorney, to and the chief financial officer in cases that deal with money, with bringing all of our policies up to date, and to make sure that the policy matches practice. And one of the disconnects in this whole P-card thing was that the practice didn't meet the policy anymore. And I think the buck stops with the commissioners on those things. And we have been trying to fix things. We have fixed a good deal of it. We had the big thing was the land development code had to be updated. That's a significant process, and it took about 2 years to do. We have a yearly beach activities ordinance redo. We're looking at a short-term rental ordinance Tuesday at the meeting, which is a significant step forward. So all these things have to be done, and it takes us some time because it has to be done in public, and there has to be advertised meetings, and you can't just come in on one meeting and vote. That doesn't work. You have to advertise it. You have to have workshops, public meetings, and which is all a good thing. That allows for a good deal of citizen comment, but it does take time.
Right.
And you can't rush. We did that mobility plan that we passed last year. That took about 4 years worth of work at the planning level, and then it took about 1.5 years on the board level. All these things just take some time, and you can't just pass an ordinance and that say, well, declare victory and we go home. You got to continuously be looking at these things, and that's where we have not done what we should do in the past, but we're working on it.
Right.
And we just updated our employee handbook and our policy manual for HR. That was about a 3-year process. So all these things are being worked on, but you have to have public comment, and you have to have public input, and without that, you're really shortchanging your citizens. So, but
that's the process.
That's the process, and we can't speed up public comment. I mean and public access and public input. There is a certain amount of time that takes, and you have to, because of the public record. Because of the Sunshine Law, you have to schedule meetings. You have to advertise them. There's certain dates and criteria that have to be met. We just can't say we're going to have a meeting tomorrow to update the land development code. That don't work.
Right.
You have to advertise it for a certain amount of time, and the paper of record are on the website. You know, there's a lot of steps that have to be taken, and then you have to give the public
Chance
access,
to speak in on it.
Access.
Speaking of public comment, you know, looking around social media and seeing some of the comments from people who, you know, are looking at this sort of at face value, I think, are asking if a full forensic audit of all county records, you know, could be, I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you. I mean, has something like that ever been performed, a full forensic audit of all county departments? Is that even a thing?
It's a thing, and for example, the city of Freeport, and that's their reasons, but about, I think, well, 4 years ago, somewhere in there, there was a desire to have a forensic audit of the books, and so they did that. Just for, you know, the city of Freeport, which has about a $14 million annual budget, I think. It took about 3 years and about, I think, $200,000 or $300,000, and they didn't find anything wrong. There's, you know, you could do a general audit that could point out areas of weakness. We do an audit every year. I mean, by law we have to have a audit. The results of that audit are in what's called the CAFR, and that's published every year. It's online, so you know, and that audit covers equipment, capital assets, expenditures, and you know, it goes down to a pretty low level. I mean, when I was a deputy, I got picked, and the auditor picks, but I got picked one time to they audited my car, my uniforms, my guns, you know, the entire, everything I had been issued by the county, I had to show. They had to make sure the serial numbers were recorded correctly, you know, and they picked, maybe every year they'd pick probably 10 or 12 deputies to go through that. And Public Works, they'll go through, you know, they'll go out to one of the districts and just say, I want to see these. So anyways, there is a audit done every year of all of our accounts, all of our equipment, all of our land, everything that we've got.
Why do you think there's this sentiment of distrust within a certain group of citizens or participants or whatever?
I think a lot of it's politically motivated, and you know, the attention being diverted to this from other things maybe is in their favor. I don't know. I can't delve into some of them's head, and don't know that I want to,
but maybe political motivation.
I can't. That's all I can figure. Or, well, I think there's in society as a whole, there is a distrust of government in general, from the federal level to the state to the locals, and everyone. I mean, I would say that most of the people who are in public service, whether I agree with them or not, are in public service for the right reasons. And that's not just elected officials, that's employees. I mean, most positions in county and state and even federal government, but particularly county and city and state, you can make more in the private sector than you can in the public sector. So if you're staying here for a long time, that would indicate that you have a desire to serve your fellow man. And you know, there's been survey after survey about firemen, deputies, paramedics. Why do you get in the field? Why do you stay? And it's the overwhelming sentiment is that people do those jobs. Teachers are another one, who do those jobs because they have a desire to help society, to help their fellow man. And I believe that's still true. But there are people who don't trust the government, and they're looking for examples or ways to prove their thesis, which is they don't like government.
What concerns me is the gridlock that comes out of it. It feels like sometimes things don't get done or progress isn't made because people are just fighting all the time.
Well, and the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've spent a great deal of time on proving that report isn't accurate. We probably spent 25 hours maybe this week alone, and I probably spent 25 or 30 last week. Now, granted, my lack of computer skills may have contributed to that number somewhat, but I know a lot more now than I did then about how to get into all this. But
just philosophically, would you rather have a team made up of people who did it because they were passionate, or would you rather have a team made up of people who were high performers that could do anything they wanted, but the roles were incentivized to such that they spent their time doing that?
Well, I think individuals who were in that category,
the second category,
probably would become frustrated with government. Government is a very specialized undertaking. But I would rather have people, I think, around me who are passionate about improving. And it is frustrating. I mean, like I said, we've spent a good deal the last 2 weeks on this, and the more you find that it's bogus, the more you get frustrated. And I'll be the first to admit I lost my temper at that meeting. And
did you feel like someone's calling you a liar?
Well, for the previous week, that's what we've been called on. Well, we're still being called on Facebook and social media in general.
And I imagine, as with a career in law enforcement, integrity and honesty is probably
nobody likes to be called a crook,
right?
And especially when you're not one. And so it will make you angry, and it did. And I lost my temper, and I'll admit to that. But what we haven't been doing in the last 2 weeks is what we normally do, which is looking for ways to make things better. And what I will say is that the current board, for the last we have done a great deal of stuff in this county to make the quality of life for the people that live in this county better. From building parks to building roads to building accesses and purchasing beach accesses, to recruiting quality businesses, to building infrastructure to support those businesses. I mean, there is a great deal of stuff been done to help people. And it is somewhat frustrating that instead of talking about that, we have to talk about this other stuff, which is not true. And at the end of the day, there's 40 pages in that report, and when you take out all the duplicates, there's maybe $40,000 over a 4-year period. So $10,000 a year divided by 5 commissioners, that's $2,000 a year, and all of it's that I can find on myself, and I would assume the other 4 commissioners are finding the same thing. It's all legitimate. It's travel. It was in the paper yesterday that I played golf at Hutchison by the Sea Golf Resort, $361. That's crazy. That was a that's a destination. That's a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I have never played golf at Hutchinson by the Sea. And in fact, I haven't played golf since I was in college and took the golf course, the course that you have to take a PE class. I think it was 1981 or 82. So you're talking about 40 years ago. I haven't played golf since then. I barely got out of that class. I think the only reason I got out of that class is because the instructor didn't want to see me back. I like to kill him. I hit a golf ball and went at him. And
well, I still keep score by how many balls I leave with. So if I show up with 10 and I have 6 or 7 when I leave, I win.
Well, I mean, I honestly have not played golf. I have not, other than putt-putt. I guess if you can't count putt-putt, I've played putt-putt a time or two with my grandsons and my son, but when my kids were growing up. But I haven't played a round of legitimate golf in over 40 years. And I did not,
You know the question I keep hearing from people? Why would anybody want this job?
I think that goes, well, maybe you have to be a little crazy, but
I mean, you really have to be in a particular specific position in your life to be able to perform this job, and then a certain type of person to deal with I don't know what to call it, the ancillary negativity.
Well, and there's a lot more of that today than there was. And philosophically, first of all, I think of the 5 commissioners in our county, and when you talk to other commissioners in other counties, it's pretty much the same. People who run for office are either retired. 4 of our 5 commissioners are retired, or you're a self-employed, rather affluent person who can set their own schedule. But a person who is working a 9-to-5 job can't do it. And I mean, because you need to, I know the state considers this a part-time job. It's a full-time job. And also 3 of ours have been in public service for all our life. So it's just a natural, maybe, continuation of, that level. We've been doing it all our life. I've been working off and on in public service since I was a summer employee in the 70s when I was 14 years old.
And it pays $49 a year.
$49,000.
What would have to happen for that to change?
That's set by the state, based on population, and they have an algorithm. I think Okaloosa County commissioners make around 80, but
so the county population can't get together and say,
no,
we want to pay this
unless you're a charter county.
Unless you're a chartered county,
which is I don't think there's any. I think Leon may be a charter, but most of the counties up here in the Panhandle are general counties. But Holmes County, I think they make like 31, 32. I mean, it
seems like it should be relative to the, I don't know, call it GDP of the county, or.
Well, I mean, yeah, because if it was by that, we would probably be among the best paid in the state, but it's not. But there's a lot of hand wringing, and I was fortunate, or I guess you could call it fortunate, that I didn't get an opponent in this past election, so I've been reelected. I was prepared to run, but didn't have to. But there's a lot of hand wringing in some quarters about the lack of candidates. Well, the fact that on a given day, probably at least one of us, and maybe all 5 of us, are called every name in the book on social media, and probably has something to do with that. And the fact that family has to endure that is not, I mean, most people don't want to do that.
It's not a positive of the job.
No, no, it's not. And you know, no sane person would want their children and grandchildren and spouse, and in some case, and, you know, mom and dad to see some of the things that are said about us. And so, you know, anybody looking at the job would say, well, you know, and people who ask me about running, I say, you better have thick skin, and your family better have thick skin, because it's coming. And you know, if you make one side happy, you get the other side mad. So, you know, there's no escaping it. You're going to get it one way or the other.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you being willing to sit down and talk about this issue again. And is there anything else you'd like to bring up while we're sitting here?
Well, I do would like to point out the great things that we're doing.
Yes.
We just opened a new road in the county, which is the first newly created road that's probably in 30, 40, 50 years.
Where is that?
Just south of the interstate, at where Best Western is. 280B, it goes to the valley to 280A. We've got a couple of other roads that are we just got state funding for that'll be brand new roads. One is the Marquee Way extension in Freeport. One is the Nelly Drive extension in Santa Rosa Beach. Our new park in Paxton is probably 95% complete. If we can get an inspection on the bathrooms, I think we're ready to open. Our new parking lot in Freeport, I think, they're on the punch list right now, which will expand. You know, one of the drawbacks to our Freeport complex is like a park, and this is going to expand it probably double at least. Our paddle trail project on Choctawhatchee River is nearing completion at Calford, and should be finished soon by at the Commander Landing Park. You know, we've got a lot of good things going on. We've got a lot more good things planned, and you know, our county is growing at such a rate. You know, we went up almost $6 billion in taxable value in the last year. We went from 25 billion to 31 billion.
Wow.
In 1 year. You know, that's almost unheard of, and so it allows us to have low property taxes, and at the same time we're generating more tax revenue per capita than any county in the state except Monroe. And Monroe and Walton are almost mirror images of each other.
And I think that's why this P-card issue is really important, or at least signifies a bigger issue, that people got to trust the government, because there's a lot of, or the county government anyways, because there's a lot of money at stake, and we have, problems might not be the right word, but those resources need to be directed.
We have significant issues, a lot with transportation. Our road system is behind, and we all know it. So we have that. We have the need to expand services. You know, there's a demand to create or to have bigger and better. You know, there's a lot of people would like an aquatic center in the South End. I think that's a something we need to concentrate on. But that's going to cost money, a lot of money. There's a demand for more programs. Again, with recreation, people want adult programs. They want more sports programs for their children. And to do those things, you got to have better and more fields. we're fixing to do a large renovation on Helen McCall Park to try to answer some of these needs. We just did a renovation on the soccer fields at the Boys and Girls Club. Our South Walton Sports Complex isn't that old, and so we've got when people ask for more and more stuff, beach access is a critical area that we've invested a lot of money in buying beach property to build beach access, and parking is a constant issue, and we've invested several $1 million in buying property to put parking lots on and parking structures on in South Walton, but there again it does. So money is critical, and while we are in a better position than some of our neighbors, we also are growing at such a rate that we have more needs, right. And the quality of life that people want and expect requires resources. So and we're working hard to make sure that happens.
Well, as things develop in the county, Commissioner Glidewell, I hope you'll continue to discuss it with me.
No problem. Enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks. All right, cool.